Lonely, I'm Mr. Lonely. I have nobody.
You're just too good to be true. Can't take my eyes off you. You'd be like heaven to touch. I wanna hold you so much. At long last love has arrived, and I thank God I'm alive. You're just too good to be true. Can't take my eyes off you. Pardon the way that I stay. There's nothing else to compare. The sight of you leaves me weak. There are no words left to speak. But if you feel like I feel, please let me know that it's real. You're just too good to be true. Can't take my eyes off you. Just too good to be true. Can't take my eyes off you. You'd be like heaven to touch. I wanna hold you so much. At long last love has arrived, and I thank God I'm alive. You're just too good to be true. Can't take my eyes off you. It's quite alright, I need you, baby, to warm the lonely night. I love you, baby, trust in me when I say, oh, pretty baby, don't bring me down, I pray. Oh, pretty baby, now that I found you, stay. Oh, pretty baby, trust in me when I say.
You're a holiday, such a holiday. Ooh, you're a holiday, such a holiday. It's something I think's worthwhile. If the puppet makes you smile, if not, then you're throwing stones. Throwing stones, throwing stones. Oh, it's a funny game. Don't believe that it's all the same. Can't think what I just said. Put the soft pillow on my head. Millions of eyes can see, yet why am I so blind when there's someone else's mean? It's unkind, it's unkind. Beep, 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 beep.